What's going on, guys? Today we are back, and today we are getting the 2UZ mounted in my '89 Toyota pickup. One of the first things I noticed when I got the 2UZ is the valve covers had a pretty good leak in them. So the plan, I'm going to take the valve covers off and the intake, I'm going to clean them up, I'm actually going to paint them so that it looks kind of pretty, replace the gaskets, put it back together, and then then it'll look nice before it gets thrown in the pickup. Well, I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of a pain in the butt. So to get the intake manifold off, actually the lower plenum, you actually need to take the fuel injectors out and the fuel rail and junk, and now I finally have access to the gasket. And check it out, looks like something made a nest in here at some point in time. And with the intake removed, it's finally time to tackle the valve cover gaskets. And let me tell you, this is a gong show. I'm not gonna lie, yesterday was rough. You know how sometimes you're watching build videos on YouTube and it looks way too easy, like they make it look like everything went without a single hitch, it was all perfect. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not always like that, and yesterday I was feeling so demotivated I didn't even really film doing this valve cover. It took me all day just to do one side. Here's why. See how some of these bolts are different than others? 5 out of 9 of the valve cover bolts broke in the head yesterday. So all of these broken ones I had to drill out and then actually find longer bolts. Luckily these don't bolt directly into the head. There's a little tiny flange in the casting. So I got a longer bolt and nutted each and every single one of these that broke. Other than that, off camera, I did put a brand new valve cover seal in this. There's new seals in each of the spark plug holes and new seals of each of these bolts. So that's nice. Now, let's go over to this side and see how many break. And boy did that side go way smoother. Now, I did still break bolts. 3 of them in fact, but I knew exactly what I had to do to fix it this time, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And now with that valve cover off, I now cleaned it up, painted it, replaced the seals, and now it's time for reassembly. Hey guys, it's interrupting the swap real quick to talk about the sponsor for today's video, THRUNITE. So as you may or may not be able to tell, I don't actually have power in this shop, which means the lighting in here really isn't adequate. And I've been using these film lights powered by an extension cord that I run to my house. And as you can see, those lights have their limitations. For example, working underneath the truck or in the engine bay or in the interior, it's just really hard to position these lights to see what I'm doing. And that is where this THRUNITE BSS V4 comes into play. This ultralight LED flashlight puts out a whopping 2,553 lumens in such a tiny package. And when you activate turbo mode with the rear switch, this puppy throws up to 250 meters. And honestly, that's a little too bright for this little tiny shop, and what I use is one of the dimmer modes activated by this side switch. The BSS V4 is also IPX8 waterproof and impact resistant, which is great because this thing has definitely taken a few falls around the shop. This flashlight also includes a single rechargeable 18650 battery. At the top of the flashlight you'll see a tactical strike bezel, and it includes a removable red filter, just in case you want to change the color of the light. If you guys want to check out the BSS V4 for yourself, links are in the video description below, and yeah, let's get back to the swap. Well, check out what arrived today, the bell housing and clutch kit. Now, under most circumstances, I would be pretty stoked that these came in, but can you see what's missing? It's the flywheel. It was supposed to come with this kit, but it's not here. Looking at the DHL box that this got delivered in, it appears that the bottom got blown out somewhere between here and Thailand. So I'm assuming that the flywheel fell out and they taped up the bottom and just kind of left the flywheel there. Didn't notice that it fell out, which doesn't really make sense because it's like a 40-pound flywheel. I don't even know what to do in this situation, but I'm short of flywheel, so I still can't put this together. And since I'm impatient, I decided what the heck. I might as well bolt the bell housing to my transmission, then bolt the transmission to the 2UZ, and then mock it up in the engine bay so that I can finally start building mounts and figuring out where exactly this motor is gonna lie. To answer your guys' #1 question with this swap, what tranny am I using? Well, I'm using an R150. This is a stock tranny that would go behind a regular, 3.0 version of these trucks with a manual transmission. And to accomplish this, I'm using the KS Racing bell housing. They advertise this for a 1UZ, but it also works on the 2UZ blocks. This kit comes with the bell housing, the clutch kit, the pressure plate, a slave cylinder. It comes with the input bearings and a spacer for it. And not only that, it comes with an extension for the input shaft. Plus it comes with your throw bearing and your shift fork. So, I mean, it's a super complete kit, and I'm sure there's a couple little extras that I'm forgetting. Well, without the flywheel, I can at least still mate them together for mocking it up. And I present to you 2UZ to R150. Today is the day. I'm going to put the 2UZ attached to the tranny in my 89 Toyota pickup. The engine is fully decorated. I got the alternator on. Everything is back together on it. And yeah, now was the real moment of truth to know how well or how well it isn't going to fit in this thing. To make this a little easier with the tranny attached, I've cut out the top of my rad support. I'm going to make it so that I could bolt it back on later. And it'll just be easier to pull the engine in and out from now on. So yeah, let's see how this fits. I'm a little nervous. Alright, the 2UZ is in the truck with the tranny attached. Now, it's almost where it needs to be, except the front needs to come down an inch, maybe two. The only problem there is I still don't have the rear sump oil pan in. And I'm really eager to start building mounts and actually getting this thing mounted up in the truck. I'm going to bring the engine up just a little bit, take the oil pan off, set the engine back down into place where it's going to be with the rear sump. I'm going to use tie downs across the frame rails to hold the tranny up in place where it wants to live. And then, yeah, I'm going to start building engine mounts. Alright guys, so yesterday I spent hours doing little tiny micro adjustments on this motor, getting it exactly where it's going to live when it's bolted down and the engine mounts are made. And now that that is done, and this is exactly where it's going to land in the end, let's start working on engine mounts. So for the engine mounts, it's really simple. These are shackles for like a 2020 Tundra, and these bolts go through the shackle mount that I welded on the engine mounts that are currently on the block in the engine bay. So this goes straight through the shackle tube on the block, and then these come down to a plate that is then mounted to the 3-liter mounts.
Feeling something you can't explain. You feel the blood is pumping faster in your veins. Don't know what's coming or what to say. Just got that feeling that you gotta get away. Yeah, you had your time, but now I'm gonna get what's mine. There's nowhere left on earth for you to hide. I'm gonna take your crown.
So now that this plate is made, it's time to go mount it onto the 3-liter engine mounts off the frame. And this is how I'm figuring out how to cut this guy. I made a cardboard template that I'm going to mock up into place and mark it where it needs to be cut and transfer that to this guy. And there's one side right there. So I'm going to pull that off and then make that cardboard piece in metal.
It's the fear that's gonna lead you to the grave. Yeah, you had your time.
Check it out. So this is one side done. As you can see, I added bracing along the back too. I couldn't brace the front because I still need to get a bolt down in here and I still need to be able to tighten it. But I mean, that should be freaking plenty strong. Looks good too. I painted it all black. And yeah, now it's time to do the same thing to the other side. And there's the second side done. So, time to paint this guy up, toss it in the truck, and then let the engine off of the engine hoist and see exactly how much the front end of this thing sags with all that added weight.
Yeah, you had your time, but now I'm gonna get what's mine. Get ready.
Anyways, guys, that about wraps up this week's episode of Dirt.Garage. As you can tell, the 2UZ fits in the engine bay great. And next up, hopefully, we're trying to start the thing. Anyways, guys, if you like this stuff, please remember to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to follow along with the 2UZ swap. Anyways, We'll see you next week. Peace.
I'ma make a couple stacks, do exactly what I want to. Mix a couple tracks, get a lady that I'm drawn to. Turn up to the max, get it faded till I'm gone, dude. I do what I want, couldn't stop me if you wanted to. I just work hard, yeah, harder than the rest. Some people say I'm lucky, others say